ensure inclusive and equitable quality education, and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. This is the challenge issued by Sustainable Development Goal number 4. In 2020, as the COVID-19 pandemic spread across the globe, a majority of countries announced the temporary closure of schools, impacting more than 91% of students worldwide. By April 2020, close to 1.6 billion children and youth were out of school, and nearly 369 million children who depended on food or meals from their schools had to look for other resources in order to be fed. So, what can we do to help improve the quality of education for all? And how are we so far in trying to achieve this? Hello science fans, my name is Shauna and I'm your resident Filipino scientist. Join us in today's episode where we talk about Sustainable Development Goal 4, Quality Education. Ignorance is not the antithesis to knowledge, but it is part of it. Wishful thinking, muddling through, and other forms of ignorance play a crucial role in shaping economic policy and its effects on society. The impact of ignorance is in such that individuals and companies with vested interests have purposely spread confusion and inaccurate information to push forward their agenda. And from here was born agnotology, the study of willful acts to spread confusion and fake information, usually to sell products or win favors. And our strongest weapon against ignorance is quality education and promoting a culture of lifelong learning. And education has been proven time and time again to enable upward socioeconomic mobility and is a key to escaping poverty. But we still have to contend with the fact that about 260 million children were still out of school in 2018, nearly 1/5 of the global population in that age group. And more than half of children and adolescents worldwide are not meeting minimum proficiency standards in reading and mathematics. Based on 2017 Philippine Statistics Authority data, 9% or 3.53 million of the estimated 39.2 million Filipinos aged 6 to 24 years old were considered out-of-school youths. And this was expected to exceed 4 million by 2021. And our current education systems also suffer from inherent inequality in access. For example, some 750 million adults and 2/3 of them women remained illiterate in 2016. In 10 low and middle-income countries, children with disabilities were 19% less likely to achieve minimum proficiency in reading than those without disabilities. But it is encouraging that in 2017, there was 1.32 female students per male student in college here in the Philippines. So, how do we balance out access to education and promote a culture of lifelong learning? With SDG4, we are aiming that by 2030, all children can have access to free, equitable, and high-quality primary and secondary education. In the Philippines, public elementary and high schools remain free, and some even provide feeding programs for their students. But standardizing quality of education in public schools are difficult. Imagine, class sizes are large and teaching materials are lacking. And above it all, teachers are poorly paid. Readiness to participate actively in basic education would also be improved by the existence of early childhood development centers. And so by 2030, SDG4 challenges all nations to ensure that all children will have access to early childhood development and pre-primary education centers so that they are ready for primary education. But daycare centers in the Philippines are few and far between, and the rates range from 10,000 pesos to 25,000 pesos per month per child. The limited accessibility of daycare centers also disproportionately burden women because they are expected to help primarily in raising children while also contributing to household income. SDG4 also calls on all nations to ensure equal access for all women and men to affordable and quality technical, vocational, and tertiary education by 2030. And though we have attained a semblance of this in the Philippines, we fail to fully reap its benefits due to the 15 to 25% male-to-female earning gap for higher education graduates. By 2030, we also want to substantially increase the number of youth and adults who have relevant skills, including technical and vocational skills for employment, decent jobs, and entrepreneurship. And here in the Philippines, we hope to contribute to this by transitioning into the K-12 system. And with improvements in implementation, we can actually help transition our students to move to the workforce much earlier compared to the old education system. By 2030 also, beyond eliminating gender disparities in education, we want to ensure equal access to all levels of education and vocational training for the vulnerable, including persons with disabilities and indigenous peoples. But recent studies have shown that the Philippines has very few PWD-friendly establishments, and that structural accommodations for buildings and classrooms are often ignored. The Department of Education is serving 2.529 million indigenous people learners in 42,176 public schools around the Philippines in the first decade of the Indigenous Peoples Education Program. And that is a huge progress in the Philippines. But it would take more effort and more resources to ensure that education is brought to all communities in the country. By 2030, we want to ensure that all youth and a substantial proportion of adults, both men and women, achieve literacy and numeracy. And I'm proud to say that the Philippines is well on the way for this, with 91.6% of Filipinos ages 10 to 64 years old classified as functionally literate in 2019, with most of them multilingual as well. And finally, by 2030, we want to ensure that all learners acquire the knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development. And this involves the teaching of subjects that specifically focus on the different sustainable development goals, while also incorporating the principles of the SDGs in as many subjects as possible. There are amazing efforts to achieve quality education. But what can STEM do to help with SDG4? Access to education has been made difficult because of the pandemic. But STEM innovations can help create practical technologies to help disseminate educational materials to a wider audience at a lower cost. STEM can also provide improved building materials and processes to provide infrastructure support to far-flung areas that have limited access to education. Through STEM, we can also create alternative ways of learning by involving a larger group of people in citizen science efforts where they will get immersed in data collection, appreciate the value of science, and learn more about the communities they belong to. And through proper science communication, we can encourage more women to go into the field of STEM to allow for greater inclusivity in the field. And so science has spoken, and science will continue to speak. And if we are to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, we have to try and listen. But what do you think? What kinds of science innovations are needed to help achieve SDG4? And how can scientists cooperate with other sectors of society in order to help improve education? Please share your thoughts and ideas in the comments section below. And to keep updated with the latest videos from SHE-ensya, please follow us on Facebook and on Instagram. You can also follow your resident Filipina scientist's personal Instagram account at shona.pabeledo. Thank you for joining us in the sustainability episode, and I hope to see you around!